Hey you guys, it's Peter, and I'm back. Of course I'm back. I'm not going anywhere. Boost! Peekaboo! I see you, and I'm YouTube. Let me get my shoulder going again. Famous now, da 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 da. There's no business like YouTube, business like podcast business. I know. All right. I'm YouTube famous now. Available in 2021. The album, Dad F. Rock on, gold dust, woman. Boost! All right. Should we get into this video? Oh, my Lord. Let me just tell you, okay? I just want to thank all the people out there that sent me a message on Instagram and on Twitter and said, will you please do a video about what you think my Lunar Beauty lip gloss Celine that just makes the entire world so much better, even through this crap that I was forced to watch this afternoon. All these people said, would you please let us know what you think about the Trisha Paytas, Ethan Klein, Frenemies episode number 13. I got so many people saying stuff about it and how Trisha had stormed off the show. Kel Supreme, Trisha Paytas has left the show again? Oh my Lord. Stormed off, started calling people a bunch of names. Surprise, surprise, surprise. This is kind of what she does at this point. I'm not surprised by it. It almost seems to me kind of scripted at this point. I personally, like if I'm going to watch people argue and fight for entertainment value, I would much rather watch The Real Housewives, okay? Ethan and Trisha fighting back and forth to me is not really entertaining, okay? And, you know, I have a lot of feelings about this, but I will tell you that my immediate response, okay, is watching somebody that gets highly emotionally just upset and invested next to somebody that is extremely passive-aggressive. That's Ethan Klein. The first one is Trisha Paytas. Go at each other and poke each other and just try to get the other person upset to the point where the said person that gets very, very emotional then starts calling people really inappropriate names and says really hurtful things and goes for the jugular. That is not, to me, real enjoyable, okay? So I don't know what people enjoy about this podcast, but my opinion is, and every time I say over here that I don't like some kind of podcast, whoo, people get very, very upset with me, okay? I don't enjoy the podcast. I don't think it's enjoyable to watch. I don't think it's entertaining. I don't even think the word cringe is appropriate. It's uncomfortable for me to watch. I don't like watching it. There's hurt feelings. You can tell there's a lot that goes below the level of this just being a podcast, okay? And I don't like watching it. It's not comfortable. But for you, I watched it today because people wanted to know what I had to say about it. Okay, so I've got notes. So let me give you a little background story if you don't know. Trisha Paytas, she is dating Ethan Klein's brother-in-law, okay? So Ethan Klein is married to Hila Klein. I think it's H-I-L-A. Is it Hila or Hila? I don't know. So I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name. I think it's Hila Klein. And so anyway, Trisha is dating Moses, Hila's brother, okay? And apparently Trisha is under the belief that Hila doesn't like her, okay? And that she's not nice to her and things like that. Although she said it in the podcast, but then when Ethan confronted her about it, she said, I never said that. And I'm sitting there watching it going, you literally just said it. I just watched it less than 5 minutes ago because the only part of this episode that I watched was from the point that they started arguing, okay? The whole time they're waiting for this pizza. And Ethan, although this huge fight is going on, Ethan keeps on going back to like, should we wait for the pizza? It was so uncomfortable. So this is the thing. The whole premise of the show is kind of like they don't agree and they don't get along. They're frenemies, okay? They're friends that don't like each other, really, okay? It's the whole premise of the show. I get it. I'm not stupid, right? They even had this huge argument that occurred, I don't know, like a month ago or 6 weeks ago or something. And I made a video about all that, talking about that. And yet again, the same thing happened, you know, like all this back and forth. And then Trisha, like, she just went right in and she started, at the moment it happens, it's like today on this episode that I watched, she makes a comment about a nanny, okay, about them having a nanny, about them having a nanny, and then she makes a comment, and then he says, "Are you talking about my parenting skills?" And it just like, it's like dun 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 dun, boom, like that. It's all of a sudden it becomes like it's Jerry Springer, okay? I mean, it's really on that level of being, like, even worse, it's uncomfortable. It's just really uncomfortable to watch. Especially if you like either one of these people, which I'm not huge fans of either one of them. So I think when you watch it, it's like, if you did like one of them, I think that you would take it really personally, you know? So, they've had this issue before, and Dr. Drew was on, wasn't it Dr. Drew? I believe it was Dr. Drew. I did watch that episode. Dr. Drew, yes, Dr. Drew was on there, and Dr. Drew told them how to, like, solve their problems and whatever. Now, that's important, okay? Because supposedly Dr. Drew is supposed to come back on for another Dr. Drew episode. So, to me, watching this, now, this episode came out, and Trisha has since made a video, and her video, hold on a second, was on her channel, was called, now it's about views and subscribers and getting people engaged in the drama that is Frenemies and working up Frenemies even more than it already was. So I'm not completely convinced that this isn't for views and drama and all that kind of stuff. She came out and she did a video. Her first video is called Why I Quit Frenemies. The point that I just watched it, it had 139,022 views on it, 7.5 thousand likes, and 7,000 dislikes. So just as many people disliked it as liked it. The comments are atrocious. Then she came out and said, "So done with H3 and their hypocrisy and lies," okay? That video is currently sitting at 38,598. It has 3,000 likes on it and 2.5 thousand dislikes. I'm sure she will probably end up making 6 more videos over the course of the night. She'll probably take to TikTok and go on and on and on all night long. She said in this first video that she and Moses turn their phones off and they don't engage in social media at night and they just relax. Girl, what world do you live in? No, I remember a couple nights on there with James Charles and Charlie D'Amelio that you were going off on several TikToks, taking to Twitter, always showing this on Twitter. Girl, you're very, very active on social media. So I don't know what time zone you're living in outside of California, but you're not just putting down your phone at 6 o'clock eating lasagna and sitting around with your boyfriend. That's just not the case, okay? I don't know how she wants people to believe that, but anybody that follows Trisha Paytas knows that that's not the case. So, I'm watching this video, and she comes on there and she talks about we're supposed to be doing this doctor, I want to say this at the beginning, because this kind of forms my opinion in reverse, right? So I'm watching it, she's like, we're supposed to do this Dr. Drew video, and I'm like, so did you guys, they may have, now you may have watched all these podcasts, so if I'm wrong, I apologize, okay? But I'm not watching these podcasts, okay? They're too cringe to me, they're uncomfortable to me to watch the whole thing. So I'm just watching the part, just talking about the part that I watched. And I did watch most of Trisha's videos. So I don't know if they have this Dr. Drew video planned or whatever, right? But you have this huge fight where you storm off and you're calling everybody names and stuff. Oh, and then Dr. Drew's happened to come on the next video. Like, to me at this point, it's just like, why are you doing it? Are we just, like, is this supposed to be a podcast just about hating each other and then how you fix these toxic relationships? I'll tell you a really good way to fix a toxic relationship. Remove toxic people from your life, okay? If both of you are toxic to each other, don't be in each other's life. It's not worth a podcast. It's not worth the mental issues that go along with it. It's just not worth it, okay? To me, to watch this is an emotional roller coaster. To have to live it, I can't even imagine. And Trisha does seem very, very upset in this, okay? And Ethan at the end of it, I mean, he told her on the podcast, he goes, yeah, I think you should go. Like, he's had it at this point. As calm and as patient as this man is, he's like, yeah, I think you should go. And then there's the boyfriend Moses, who's like in the background, like, I don't think he's like delivering the pizza, and I don't think he even really knows like what's going on or anything with all of this. So I went in here and I watched these videos. Here, you want my notes on it? This is what I think. Okay. So the video, first of all, the podcast, okay, that isn't about this, but they say it's not about this. They say it's not about the fighting or whatever, that it's, can we just get back to the drama? Can we just get back to talking about beauty products? No. These podcasts are about the fighting, okay? And I'm starting to feel like it's really contrived. The podcast is called Trisha Quits the Podcast and Storms Out, number 13. Well, okay, there you go. Right there. It's like a drama video. So she goes in, and it literally just kind of comes out of nowhere. She's saying something about Hila, and that, and then Ethan says that she doesn't want to be talked about on the podcast, okay? And then he goes, we're going to have to cut this part out. Now, what's interesting to me on the limited amount of the podcasts, not just this one, but others that I've seen, whenever there's this like highly like toxic part of the thing, he always goes, yeah, well, I guess we're going to have to cut this part out. But like he never does. Like it's always in there. He says we're going to have to cut it out, but he doesn't. She then goes into this whole thing where she says they're fake and they're BS and they're like, and all this kind of stuff because they cut stuff out and they're not willing to talk about personal issues on their podcast. She then goes into claim that he calls it, what did he call it, a renaissance? What was it? Hold on a second. Something renaissance. Is she taking credit for the renaissance of the H3 podcast? And she said, absolutely. Your views doubled. You got 300,000 this. I brought people over here. People were in the comment section said, I'm watching for Trisha. So she said she takes credit for the podcast improving. She said it was tanking before then. Okay? So it goes on and on and on. And it's really about the fact that she feels that Moses' sister Hila, Ethan's wife, doesn't like her, okay? But then it goes into, it's very confusing because he's like, well, you always say that she doesn't greet you when you come in the door. And she goes, I've never said that. I say, you don't greet me when you come in the door. And he goes, well, you've said it. And she goes, where? There's no evidence of it. You can sit there and watch this and you can realize it's about to be an SHI show, okay? It just builds up and builds up and builds up. And then he says she doesn't want her to talk about, that Hila doesn't want them talking about her. Trisha says, well, you didn't have any problem talking about me and Moses in the spring when we weren't on the podcast. You talked about us anyway, so why does she get a free pass? What she's really ate up about is this, okay? Is that they can talk about Trisha, they can talk about Moses, blah, 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 can talk about this, but they can't talk about Queen Hila, is who she refers to, or whatever, that she basically, like, everybody, like, just bows down to her. This is, like, kind of what Trisha is basically saying, okay? That everybody treats Hila with kid gloves, but nobody treats Trisha that way, and Trisha wants to be treated the same way, okay? Is basically what she's saying. The problem is she doesn't come out and say it that way, okay? She's screaming and yelling, and it gets very typical Trisha where she just shuts down immediately. You can see it. You can see it when you're watching it. She shuts down. She's like, well, nah. And she's like, and we can talk about whatever. I don't care. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want to talk about this. Y'all are assholes, blah, 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 whatever. She doesn't say that, actually, but basically insinuates that. So then, right before, okay, it goes on and on and on. She's calling them fake. She's calling them BS, saying that they cut stuff out of their videos. Going on and on about all this kind of stuff. She says she feels uncomfortable coming to the house because Hila's there and it's her house. And she doesn't want to come there. She talks about how she's a public figure because she's got a podcast and Tik Tok. And she should be able to handle being talked about. And that they can't tell her that she can't talk about her on the podcast. It goes back and forth, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of stuff, okay? And then out of nowhere, right before an ad, she goes, well, I can tell you, something to the effect of, I wouldn't have a nanny if I had a kid. And he goes, what did you say? And then it goes to an ad. I'm like, okay, this is interesting because this is what I'm seeing on Twitter. People talking about Trisha saying something about them having a nanny. Okay. So she goes in and says basically that if she had kids, she would not let anybody take care of her kids except for family. And then he says, well, we both work. A lot of people have nannies. And it goes back and forth. And then she says something to the effect of, or he says, well, what about daycare? And she says that's different. Now, I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, the majority of Trisha's viewers probably do not have nannies, okay? Now, I don't know about y'all, but living in the middle of Indiana, I don't know hundreds of people that have nannies. That must be a California thing, okay? But that's too rich for our blood out here. I don't know tons of people that have nannies out here. I just don't, okay? Daycare, all day long, right? So anyway, I'm watching this, I'm thinking, Trisha knows who her audience is, because she says, no, daycare is different. But then she backs away from that and she says, no, I wouldn't let anybody take care of my kid unless it was a family member. She goes into this whole family member thing, and it's back and forth. And then it comes out of nowhere. Moses comes and delivers the pizza, and it literally, this is when it's like, boom. Because she wants, I guess, somebody to know how she really feels. And so Ethan kind of is explaining what happened to Moses, and Trisha starts going off, and she's calling them names. It's, you guys, it is so uncomfortable to watch. And Ethan's just sitting there, and then he tries to wrap up the show afterwards. And he's like, I feel really bad. And this is what he said before. He's like, I feel really bad. But I have to say, on both of their parts, because she kind of like turns it at one point, and then she's kind of like smiling and smirking, and it's just real like, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, do you guys hate each other so much that you're literally poking the hell out of each other? In all honesty, like, she goes to a level that's the thing, you know? You poke Trisha far enough, and then she goes to a level where she says things that she should probably not have said, that are really, really hurtful things, that I don't think any of us, I'm telling you right now, if people talked about my partner or my husband or my friend or whatever the way that she does in this podcast, they'd never be sitting next to me on a podcast again, let alone be in my life, period. Okay? I don't have people around me that I allow to talk to me that way. I don't understand this back and forth. And they're grown adults, okay? This isn't like that they're 15 years old with each other. They're grown adults talking to each other this way, and it's hurtful. I don't understand it. So then she goes into this podcast, and not podcast, then she goes into a video, and she makes this video. This is when I was like, you guys really want me to cover this? Like, seriously, I can't watch all this. She does a video called Why I Quit Frenemies. It's 45 minutes long, you guys, and it's her sitting on the floor, and she goes in and she explains the whole background history and what Dr. Drew said and all this kind of stuff. And actually, to be honest with you, like, if you watch that alone, like, it would kind of make sense. But then when you watch her blow up, and she talks about how she blows up at people, and she talks about how she can't keep friends, and she talks about how she doesn't like that side of her, and whatever. It's like, okay, like, I kind of get behind what Trisha's saying. Like, she at least is aware of what's going on, But then she comes out with this video, and the video is called So Done with H3 and the Hypocrisy and Lies. Now, I have to tell you, the comments on all of these videos, you guys, against Trisha are just like, people have had it with her, okay? If she steps foot back on this podcast, you're talking about the hypocrisy, okay? After you have now stormed off twice, said you're done with the podcast, if you come back onto this podcast, okay, talk about some hypocrisy, since you put it in the title of your video, that's some hypocrisy if she comes back on this podcast, right? After how she's now made 2 videos in a couple hours about how done she is with them, because apparently she was watching the live stream, and Ethan said to her that he was really, really upset with this comment that she had, that she had pinned to her video. Well, I thought this was interesting because I had just gone to her video, Why I Quit Frenemies. It now has 7.8 thousand likes and 7.6 thousand dislikes and 155,000 views. I went to the comment, and the top comment, she pinned herself. Here it is. Are you ready? It has 462 replies on it. Someone said, people keep praising Ethan and Hila, but to be honest, they're just as toxic as David and his gang was. They poke Trisha in ways that they know will get a rise out of her and don't fully communicate with her. Trisha's not, like I said, she's not 20, okay, at this point. Is it my responsibility to know that somebody is going to, lose it if I keep on, saying certain things? Isn't that their responsibility? You know what I mean? Or she can choose to not be part of it anymore. This isn't the first time at the rodeo. This is the 10th or 20th time that Ethan has said things that upset her. Don't go back on the show if you don't like it, So anyway, this person says, they poke Trisha in ways that they know will get a rise out of her and don't fully communicate with her. There's a lot of underlying passive aggressiveness, which I will agree. I witnessed that as well. And condescension in their interactions with Trisha. But from both points, it is. And nobody ever calls them out for it. So here are some of the comments. Yes, finally someone agrees. Someone said, did Trisha really just pin this? Oh my God, she acts like she is sorry and then plays the victim. Because she acted like she was sorry in the first video. Then someone said, I'm glad you have common sense. Someone said, exactly, these people don't see both sides. Someone said, exactly. Someone said, both are at fault in my opinion. They are adults. Someone said, okay, this is the comment you pinned, Trish. You need help. Everyone is clearly telling you how you are wrong, and you pinned the one comment pertaining to your perspective, which is obviously manipulative. Someone says, they both crossed the line one way or the other. They all just need to talk and learn to be open with each other in private. Well, they have a public podcast, and that was kind of Trisha's point. And she was like, we can't talk about everything on here as a public podcast. Y'all don't need to be having a podcast, okay? You can't handle having a podcast unless the conversation is, let's hype this up for the podcast. Are you doing it for the podcast, or is this real? Because there are real relationships that are being, if this is completely 100% real, then there are real relationships that are being affected by the things that are being said. There are real emotions and feelings that are being, on all parts. Moses, Hila, Ethan, Trisha's mom and sister come up in this whole thing. I mean, there's all kinds of people that are being affected by this. Whoo, y'all, it's just a lot. It's a lot for me to watch. It was so uncomfortable to watch. I don't, anyway, you know. Let me know. Oh, she did say in there, though, that she has some longtime friends. She did say that, like Shane and her, I think her hairstylist, she says Angel. I think that's her hairstylist. So, Trisha has a few long-term friends in there that she talks about. I don't know, you guys. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. I'm kind of surprised she actually hasn't posted a third video. I thought, when I saw it, I was like, here we go. Trisha's going to be posting a third and a fourth. Nope, she hasn't. And the other video now has 44,000 views. Here, I should read some of the other comments on Trisha's video real quick going into this. Someone said, not just the pinned video. Just imagine the whole episode could have been entirely different if the pizza man just arrived earlier. Someone said, I was impressed how calm Ethan was, but I could tell he got angry. He did get angry after she attacked his wife and his parenting skills. He had every right to be angry too. Someone said, let's move on, but also I would never have a nanny. So right when it was clearing up, that's when Trisha brought up the nanny thing, right? Like they were moving on. They both said, let's move on, let's move on, let's move on, let's move on. And then she goes, okay, let's move on. He goes, all right, do you want to talk about? And she says, but I would never have a nanny. I mean, it came completely out of the blue. And I was like, girl, this is so manipulative. Like, what are you doing? Like, you obviously just want to fight, you know? Have you ever met somebody that just wants to fight for fight's sake? Not me, okay? Not me! It's just the emotional heartache that goes along with that is to, listen, I don't like that, okay? I used to be somebody that always had to be right. I don't care today. I just don't. I don't want the emotional hangover that goes along with it. I don't want to hurt somebody. I don't want my feelings to be hurt, you know, and there's a lot of responsibility and accountability that needs to be taken to learn that, and I think they both need to learn that on some level. You know, this is the thing, is that Ethan has this conversation with her and he can realize that it's kind of like, he's like, yeah, well, like, you seem really upset. And then she gets really upset and he keeps on kind of like, yeah, you seem really upset. Let's not talk about this anymore. And then he's like, at the end of it, it's always, well, I feel really bad that Trisha's upset. And I'm like, if you just watched the same train wreck that I did, you could have seen it happening like miles away. So I do believe they were both part of this. I really do. Which is why I wonder if this isn't for the views and stuff like that. Is this whole podcast just supposed to be like this train wreck of a relationship between them? That's sad. Like, that's not enjoyable for me to watch. But hey, you know what? If you like it, you do you. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Bye.